We all know Aliko Dangote. He has been Africa's richest man since 2013, apart from the brief periods where Johann Rupert held that position. Rupert deserves his own video, but let's stick with Dangote. The Nigerian businessman has made his wealth through a variety of investments, from cement, fertilizers, sugar, salt, and even tomatoes. However, his biggest wealth driver has been oil, especially Dangote Oil Refining Company Limited. You see, here's the thing about Nigeria. It literally swims on oil. We're talking about deposits around 37 billion barrels of oil. It ranks second in Africa behind Libya and ranks 11th in the world. Oil is so instrumental to Nigeria that it makes up a majority of the country's export earnings. Now, back to Dangote. He decides to found the Dangote Oil Refining Company Limited in 2013. His aim is to open a refining facility in Nigeria, one that is privately owned and that can be managed effectively, unlike the run-down, mismanaged ones that existed in Nigeria. His argument was that the refinery would create thousands of jobs. The project was initially supposed to cost $9 billion and a facility that could pump out around 700,000 barrels per day. But the cost aside, Dangote has always been a champion for developing Africa. We'll see that later in the video. Despite the initial $9 billion projection, costs shot up to past $20 billion due to site relocation, engineering setbacks, currency devaluation, and of course, COVID-19. Construction began in 2017 and initial operations started in 2023. Finally, the richest African had an oil refinery in Nigeria. But Dangote has always had a soft spot for developing the continent.
Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, they actually produce 2/3 of the world's cocoa. But the total amount of these exports that they have is about $6 billion. Okay, but the chocolate market is 100 billion. Yeah. That's why they should actually have some of these factories here.
Yeah. Let's zoom out and look at the state of oil in Africa. Then, by the end, you'll probably be able to join the dots. Africa produces around 7% of global crude oil, exports 3/4 of what it produces, while importing around 70% of the refined petroleum products. Why would a continent that produces so much oil end up importing so much oil at the same time? Well, over the last 20 years, refining capacity across the continent has declined rapidly. Aging refineries, chronic underinvestment, poor maintenance, and the chronic disease that is corruption. Just to show you how bad things are in the oil refining scene, there are 21 refineries in North Africa, 14 in West Africa, and most are running below refining capacity, and some are not even operating at all. There are 7 oil refineries in the southern part of the continent. To put the numbers into perspective, South Korea pumps around 113,000 barrels of oil per day out of the ground. Africa pumps around 7.2 million barrels per day, and yet South Korea refines more oil in a single day than the entire continent combined. East Africa, which is Uganda, South Sudan, Kenya, and DRC, sits on 4.7 billion barrels of crude oil reserves and has only one refinery in Mombasa, Kenya, and the one refinery has not been operational since 2013. This means that African nations have to deal with the expensive imported oil that has the cost of the processed product, the transportation cost, also known as the freight cost, a refining margin, which is essentially refiners' profit for turning crude oil to oil, distribution and marketing levies, and then slap on taxes and levies. Now, what happens when the region that Africa relies heavily on is plunged into a war?
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
This is a scenario Africa found itself in, especially East Africa, and this is where Aliko Dangote walks back into the story. Remember his refinery in Nigeria? It hit full capacity the same month tensions in Iran flared up, right on time to act as the region's shock absorber, with Cameroon, Togo, Ghana, and even Tanzania turning to it for fuel supply. As for Kenya, it had protests that shut the capital over the increase of fuel after reassurances from the government that Kenya was well equipped to deal with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Dangote had done it in Nigeria. Why not East Africa? East Africa sits on 4.7 billion barrels of oil reserves and does not have a single functioning refinery. Initially, his sight was set on Tanzania, the port of Tanga. President Ruto of Kenya had also mentioned Tanga as a potential refining site, which was turned down early on by Samia Suluhu, the president of Tanzania, who reprimanded the Kenyan president for announcing the deal prematurely and the fact that no approvals had been given. Then Dangote pivoted to Kenya, specifically the island of Lamu. The reason was simple. Lamu's port was deeper and larger, the Kenyan economy was bigger, and the consumption was higher in Kenya compared to Tanzania. As for the cost, it will be roughly $17 billion, around 2.2 trillion shillings, financed through internal cash flow, bonds, and an IPO. The project is expected to take 3 to 5 years, a long-term project that will lower pump prices, lower transport costs, make it easier and cheaper for manufacturing to take place, and even improve the food security of East Africa by the availability of fertilizers. The main question, however, is how exactly will Aliko Dangote navigate regional politics, and will this be a step in the right direction, or will this be another story of what would have been? Write your thoughts in the comment section, and if you want to see more videos like this, please like and subscribe.